what types of jobs. And really, our jobs, what you want is a bluer collar. Within 700 miles of Indianapolis is 2/3 of the American population. It sounds silly if you've not thought of that before. You can have breakfast in Indianapolis, lunch in Chicago. Or if you start early enough, you get breakfast in Indy and you go to New York for a show for dinner. Or you hit Atlanta for dinner. It's centrally located. And if someone wants to make $70,000 a year working for one of the Amazon or logistical companies, they need a house to rent.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe. Today's episode was another fantastic one, and thank you for tuning in and listening to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, I would encourage you to check out our YouTube channel because I got a pretty sweet beard right now. I'm on paternity leave and have been growing out the beard before I have to go back to work and start shaving every day. So you're missing out if you're not seeing this live, or maybe you're not. My wife hates it. But nonetheless, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. We're going to talk about way more than my beard. Today's episode was fantastic. This is with Michael Drew, and we talk about turnkey real estate, turnkey investment properties, what that means and how that may be a great option for you as you're trying to buy back your time and replace your W-2 income to give you some more freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. Michael has a ton of experience. He's been the CEO of Real Estate Done For You, and they've helped hundreds of real estate investors, over 1,100 real estate transactions, with the goal of helping investors replace their W-2 or earned income with rental income. This was a fantastic episode. We talk a lot about what is a turnkey investment, who is it good for, what are some potential pitfalls, and we also talk about the end how you can connect with him if you're interested in investing with Michael Drew and his company, Real Estate Done For You. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode with Michael Drew. Michael Drew, welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. I'm so glad to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking the time all the way from Indianapolis, I believe. Good to hear from you. How are things going?
Absolutely. It's wonderful, wonderful. We're here in the Midwest and it's 70 degrees and I'm loving it. Everyone's taking their convertible tops down and riding their motorcycles still.
That's awesome. It was great talking with you beforehand about pickleball, adventure racing, all those good things, and raising kids, which is awesome. Could have talked to you all day, but wanted to get to the podcast. So I really appreciate it. Do you mind telling folks who don't know anything about you a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Really, my story started when, unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was way too young. I was 31 years old. My dad passed away. He served in our country's Navy, and he passed away from melanoma, really complications from that. And I was the more financial son, if you will. My sister's awesome, just I'm a little bit more, my aptitude. So what we did is, my very stressful time, a little bit too young in my opinion, but what we did is we rolled over my dad's 401k, which then became my mom's inherited IRA. And besides the real estate, that was the most valuable thing she owned. What we actually did is we bought turnkey houses inside my mom's inherited IRA, and we were able to buy enough to replace my dad's income. So essentially, very simply, in one fell swoop, she owned the physical deeds to houses in a tax-deferred environment, the IRA, of course, that we were able to replace my dad's income. And it seemed to make sense to me. I actually mentioned that in a seminar in California, and a lady raised her hand and said, "Can I be your mom?" And I said, "Wait a second, there could be a business here." That was about 1,100 properties ago.
Wow.
That was about 15 years ago. Since then, we've done well over 1,000 houses in the Indianapolis area only. Lots of happy, of course, physicians, as well as clients up and down both coasts, actually internationally as well. So it's a love for me to basically turnkey, which is basically mailbox money where folks, we do the heavy lifting and they enjoy the passive income. That's basically what turnkey investing is.
That's awesome. I'm sorry to hear about your father passing, and I'm glad that you were able to figure out how to set up your mom for success and then turn that into a business. It's pretty incredible. What was kind of your background, or how did you know that you could use an IRA to then invest in real estate?
Well, my dream was actually to trade the stock market. Okay. This was many moons ago. The problem there is it was like an hourly job. You had to trade, you had to follow these systems and things like that. And long term, I've got 4 kids. I love my kids, and I love, they used to say that rich people have money and wealthy people have time. I'm like, okay, so I have some money, but I don't have time. That didn't make sense. I didn't want to be tied to the computer or trade the morning open, this and that. And what that led me to do is follow people that were successful with this. That led me actually to a gentleman by the name of Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote a bunch of books called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I actually worked for his company for a while out of Arizona, and I just basically copied. I copied a lot of what he did and said. And I kind of reverse engineered the best way to build this company. That's what I learned from him and his employees. And it just worked out really, really well. Honestly, I failed a lot in the beginning. 15 years ago, we just changed and modified things. And so that's really where it was. I kind of reverse engineered the goal, what I really wanted, which is that passive income. I didn't really want a job. I wanted the income. I wanted the freedom. And that's what I was able to engineer.
That's awesome. A lot of great points there. We think about freedom a lot in some capacities, what everyone's looking for. And I feel like there's kind of three different stages of freedom. There's that financial freedom, which is kind of that initial hurdle that we all have to get over, which is where the passive income really comes in. Then there's that time freedom, that freedom to do what you want, when you want, where you want, which that, as that passive income continues to climb, that's where we're headed. And then there's that mental and emotional freedom. Like, hey, you're free to do what you're passionate about, which is awesome. Super cool to hear that. And I think a lot of folks listening to this podcast are definitely interested in the idea of financial freedom, time freedom, and that mental and emotional freedom in some capacity. It's really cool to hear that you figured that out 15 years ago and really chased after that. What a cool experience getting to work with Robert Kiyosaki. Everyone asks, like, what book got you interested in real estate or entrepreneurship? It's always the Purple Bible. It's always Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so if folks are listening to this and they have not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it is a great mindset shift and a great way of thinking. That's awesome. Well, really cool.
Well, it's kind of that, I don't know what order you would say that has to go in. I think the mental has to go first because my wife is brilliant. She just got her PhD and she hangs with very smart, educated folks. And that's wonderful. But I also kind of encouraged her. I said, keep buying houses though, honey. She bought a house a year. She owns 6, I think, right now. And I think she's seen them once. We just direct deposit rent into her account. I said, her passion is helping people and I love it. She's in her 50s. She's a beautiful lady, but I want her to have that freedom. And these are the circles that I hang around with. This is what we talk about, not necessarily what she talks about. Mentally, she had that shift and now she's taking action on it. In fact, an ENT friend of mine out of Chicago taught me long ago. He said, Michael, you got a good W-2 income, but you're a poor steward of your credit. And I said, well, my mom and dad taught me to have great credit. What are you talking about? They're like, what'd you do? You bought one big fancy house? And I said, yeah, that's all. And then he started teaching me years ago. He says, all you have to do is leverage just a little bit. You don't have to give your money away into something that you don't know or that you're not on a deed to or trust somebody else. Just use your credit a little bit. And that's where it felt really good because I could get in and not feel like I was emptying my bank account on my first house.
And not taking that huge gamble and risking it all, is important from that perspective. Yeah, I agree. I think that mindset shift, that initial hurdle is something that folks really struggle with, that analysis paralysis. And once you get over that hurdle, I'm sure, with your wife as well, once you bought that first house and the rate deposit started hitting the bank account, she probably felt a lot better about her decision.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, how does, Turnkey, how do you feel like that may be a beneficial option for physicians? Or if you don't mind hitting a little bit more, what exactly is a turnkey property? Sure.
So what I want you to think of when investors think of what turnkey residential real estate is, it is more of an entrepreneurial approach to residential real estate investing. The analogy I use many times is I like to use Ubers. Right? I'm in a city that we don't really use Ubers a ton, but I'm in plenty of cities that we do use them almost exclusively. If we were to engineer an Uber business, we would find out the most effective vehicle for that city. I tend to think like a Toyota Camry or a Toyota Prius, or if you're in a bigger city, maybe an SUV. It's not a Toyota Camry, let's use that one. It's not a sexy vehicle per se. It's not going to win any race for sure, but it's the right vehicle for that job. When we're engineering, replacing a multiple six-figure income is mainly a math problem. It's a lot of discipline and a mental fortitude, but it's mainly a math problem. What turnkey residential real estate is the epitome of reverse engineering that, if you will. So what we did is the number one thing you think of and when you do rental real estate is jobs. Okay. We need someone, if you're doing a restaurant, you'd have to have traffic patterns. We need customers to eat our food. In residential real estate, we need jobs. Those are the people that are going to rent our homes. What I learned a long time ago is we want to be, if you were to number the cities as far as size, we want to be in market, what are there? I think there's 300 size cities. My sister was a news anchor. She started in market 300 and now she's in market 9 in Detroit. New York is number 1, Chicago is number 2, LA is number 3. And in San Francisco, the towns are great and they're huge, but they're cost prohibitive to own real estate. Too expensive. The ROI is not there. And so that really leaves you in a sweet spot where I'm in, which is kind of market 10 to 15. I mainly specialize in Indianapolis, which depends what you read, what report is about market 13, 14, right there. Over 1 million people in the greater area. Now we've got the people. And then we start checking off boxes. Really, we check off boxes so we don't lose money. For example, is Florida recently, it seems the weather is getting worse in Florida. I'm a snowbird in Florida as well. We like Florida. It's beautiful. It's wonderful to relax on for our maybe second home, but the insurance costs are crazy, and property taxes. It's lovely, but I want to maybe live there in the winter, but I don't want to rent property there personally. It's just that cannibalizes our rate of return. So we keep checking these boxes off. We've got jobs, we've got very low insurance costs, very low litigation, the costs. Then what happens when something goes wrong? We evaluate eviction costs. In the Midwest, it's about $500 to evict. In California, it's thousands, and ours is like 45 days, and we have a 1% eviction. We keep checking these boxes off. Then you go to the actual, what types of jobs? And really, our jobs, what you want is a bluer collar. Within 700 miles of Indianapolis, it is 2/3 of the American population. It sounds silly if you've not thought of that before. You can have breakfast in Indianapolis, lunch in Chicago. Or if you start early enough, you have breakfast in Indy and you go to New York for a show, for dinner. Or you hit Atlanta for dinner. It's centrally located. And if someone wants to make $70,000 a year working for one of the Amazon or logistical companies, they need a house to rent. And maybe their credit's not perfect. That's okay. So things like that. Now we have jobs, we have low insurance. And then you think, wait a second, over the next, call it 10 or 15 years, there's going to be a recession, or at least some recessionary time. What I learned from my mentors is you want to go to the state capital or the county seat where there's always going to be some sort of jobs and administrative work and things like that. There's over 15 or 20 universities nearby because during recessionary times, people go back to school. All these factors contribute to why we chose Indianapolis. And then really the dollars and cents. We can still do a 3-bedroom house that rents for about, say, $1,500, $1,600 a month for under $200,000, $150,000 to $200,000. Someone can, I'm thinking 20% down, call it $150,000. So someone can get involved for $30,000, 20% down, and they own real estate. I won't get into a lot of the minutia of the numbers, but it's going to have a great rate of return. The tenant's going to be able to pay it off. You're on the deed, and then all of a sudden it's got an internal rate of return of, look at the spreadsheet, mid-teens to 20s, depends on the mortgage rate or things like that. Or a lot of people are just paying cash for them. So that's where we're at. And now my system, the turnkey operator, we own the homes, we rehab the homes up to our standard, and we also own the property management company. Everything is done one-stop shop. When someone's ready to go, they just say, raise their hand. And here's what my friend does. Tell me what you'd give your sister. I'm like, all right, I know what you're doing. Because they're like, the last 3 homes you gave me were perfect. All you do is send me mine. I've got some extra down payment funds. I need to replace this income. Let's go. And so a turnkey operator like myself will do all that for you. We'll do all the heavy lifting, line up insurance, line up everything for you. You just have to raise your hand and say, I'm ready, basically.
That's awesome. And also, thanks for the description of market factors and what you're looking for in an area that you're looking to invest in. Like all those things are so important, making sure there's economic diversity, making sure that people are there, they're not moving out, all those sorts of things. Indianapolis is booming. I mean, folks are certainly very interested in Indianapolis, Ohio. I feel like a lot of folks are investing in kind of the Midwest for the cash flow and for the stability and for the lower priced homes to get into. Because, a lot of the market.
It's funny. My old boss in an old company was in the New Hampshire area, which I've been to a lot of major cities. It's breathtaking. New Hampshire is breathtaking. If you've ever driven there. It's just the rate of returns on the homes were outlandish. And even my realtor friend was like, I mean, we can't get any positive cash flow unless we put down 50%. I said, well, that's not the best use of your capital, is it? She says, no, I live where, here's what a wise phrase. I live where I want, but I invest where it makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really easy.
Got to figure out what your investment goals are. And if it's cash flow, the Midwest is fantastic. Yeah. And then you didn't even hit on the other benefits of real estate investing, of course, the tax benefits, the depreciation, the amortization, the loan getting paid down, the leverage, like all these sorts of things that also impacts your return, which is amazing. So that's really cool. It sounds like really turnkey, all the heavy lifting's done for you. It's done. You just wire the money and then hopefully get the mailbox money and go from there. Kind of a 2-part question. What are just some common challenges you've seen new real estate investors face? And then what are some common challenges in the turnkey properties that you've experienced?
Sure. A new investor can struggle with analysis paralysis. If an investor is saying how many shingles are on the roof, they're not my target. I don't know the answer, actually. A lot of this, you have to start down that path. And then it's like my son graduated from college And his first car he bought was a Honda Accord. I said, great job. But you still have to save money for tires and brakes. He says, Dad, it's brand new. It shouldn't need anything. I said, no, it will. It'll need tires and brakes. I've seen you drive, son. So when you own a house, you have to leave a little bit of margin for maintenance. Well, what could it be? It could be what you would imagine. You have anything to do with water, drains, or they flush down too many potatoes, incinerators, or gutters, or basic things. But a turnkey operator like myself is we're going to go ahead and spend the money so you have new HVAC, a roof that has a good life left on it. All the major things have been taken care of by the provider. But someone who lives there, they might have whatever. It's just a small variance. So when people say, well, I don't know if this, if you understand, perfect example is my sister. My sister started with 2 homes 15 years ago. Now that's a long time, or maybe it was 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, she's not seen the houses. They were a little bit better houses. She says, give me better houses. I don't want any stress. We got her a little bit nicer houses. And now she's got some changes in her life, and she's got well over, I think she told me she's got over $200,000 of equity. She said, I honestly don't really want to sell them yet, but she had an event happen in her life that she wanted some cash. And I said, well, you've got $100,000 of equity in this property that you can get cash out of it. And so she contacted my mortgage banker. I think she grabbed $50,000 of cash or something like that. That's her business. But it's a cash out refinance. It's tax-free money out of an asset. It just feels super safe when you do this. And along the way, she had some maintenance. She had some things like that, but she was able to tap that cash. So if she would have gone down and, I invite investors out anytime. They can do what we call an investor interview. Flying to the city, no problem. In fact, we'll buy your plane ticket if needed. And drive around the neighborhoods, things like that. That's fine, but like our 3-bedroom houses are about 1,000, 1,200 square feet. They're very basic. They're a Toyota Camry of houses. That's all it is. The challenges are they don't, like I said, get started, or they think I wouldn't live there or something like that. That's not the point here. A lot of our goals is we're replacing a multiple 6-figure income. You may not want to live in a 1,200 square foot home, but someone who's like my truck driver friend, tenant, who lived, unfortunately, his mother passed away and he's living with his dad. His dad's on a military pension and he is a truck driver. They make well enough money, automatically pay the rent off their bank accounts, and they're paying off the mortgage. He said, well, I wouldn't live there. That's fine, So the challenges are getting started. The other thing is some people get a little bit, I personally like having the control of owning the deed. And when you do single family homes, the exit to a single family home is simply, you can put a sign in the yard and sell it on the retail market. It's very easy. When you get involved in bigger projects or multi-units or syndications or REITs, the exit isn't quite as simple, okay? So just keep that in mind and see what's best for you as an investor. Do you like that dexterity that you own it? You actually can take those tax advantages or no? As far as the homes themselves are concerned, the challenges that you'll face is this. When I first did this, I bought a home with a lease. It was a 2-year lease. I thought that I'm quote, guaranteed income. Well, about 1.5 years into that lease, they got a job offer in Seattle, and they left the security deposit, left the home really nice, and they left. And yes, we have leases in place. Can I go ahead and chase them for the 6 months they didn't pay? Yes. But as an operator, here's what I do immediately. I get my team on it. I get it re-rented within 30 days. So you have to have enough mindset bandwidth. A lease is important. But if someone's, parents is diagnosed with some sort of disease and they leave your home as best as can be expected, this is what can happen in any real estate product. It can happen. So just make sure you have a little bit of dry powder in your bank account. If something like that happens, the minority of the time is that it's not a guarantee. Nothing's guaranteed in real estate. It's people's behavior. We can't guarantee that. So as long as you have that bandwidth, you understand that. Over the long haul, it works out very, very well. Very, very well.
Yeah, real estate is a get-rich-slow scheme for sure. I think with TikTok and Instagram and all that, they want that get-rich-quick scheme, and real estate is not it. And it shouldn't be. If it's something that is, it's probably a little bit more risky than you should be involved in. But yeah, you can't control behavior. That's certainly true. We're living that right now. We have a rich property in Florida at my previous duty station, Eglin Air Force Base, and the tenants just trashed the house. It was a huge mess. We had to put a bunch of money in to replace the floors because they had a dog. They were supposed to only have one dog. It turns out there are multiple dogs in there. They tore up all the carpet, all the trim. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And we got it fixed up, but we're not right now in that looking for new tenants. And it can be a challenge and it's hard. And I would say that keeping the cash in the back pocket's important. It is tricky too, because it's like, wow, we just wiped out a whole year of cash flow just from repairs. That's a tricky part too, from a single family perspective. But those things happen and it's just something you got to understand. But the appreciation, the tax benefits, everything else from that home and the cash flow we've gotten over time far exceeds, this one blip on the radar.
I hear these nightmare stories. And then it's similar when I was teaching my kids how to drive. Watch out for this and watch out for this. And this could happen. And yes, that said, I always think is what would an older version of me advise me to do? So that's it. When I have my clients in their 50s and 60s and they say, Michael, this has been the easiest thing I've done. I wish I would have bought more. That's the standard answer. I wish I would have bought more. We had some storms recently and some trees fell down, $150 to clear some trees off the yard and this and that. Okay. Nothing hit the houses. So these things, storms happen in life. But if we can think about that, what would an older version of me want to do? And that's what I really encourage people to base their decisions on. Some of my clients, instead of leaving their children or their families 7 figures or all their monies, they're leaving their kids a real estate portfolio. Smart. Because you want to know how to screw up a kid. You leave them $1 million when they're 18. It won't work. Maybe, who knows? So leave them a portfolio that they're making the income off of. Or even a spouse. Maybe your spouse might not know what to do with life insurance monies. And I've had people say, hey, I've got some cash. I don't know what to do with it. I said, let's get you into some doors immediately. Let's get this X, whatever that pile of cash is. Let's get it moving indoors immediately and get you a check every month from it. And it's very, very safe, in my opinion, right? I mean, the homes are sold for X and they appraised at X, whatever that might be. We've got a real good experience. We're passionate. We're passionate about it. And the owners, like myself and my business partners, we own the real estate. We've experienced those same horror stories. We're angry with you if something like that happens. It's rare. That's why we remember those stories. But if something like that happens, we feel duped. We feel that we trusted these people to take care of our property and then we made a bad choice. Doesn't have that often, but when it does, we get a little ticked off as well. And so we make it right and fast.
Real estate done for you, your guys' company. If someone's looking to invest with you, what's the timeline look like from like, hey, we've contacted you, maybe flown out, toured Indianapolis and looked at some areas. I think it's great to interview folks face to face and see the area, maybe talk to your property management folks and all sorts of things. I think doing that due diligence is really important. And then if folks are looking to invest or want to get their first turnkey home, what's that process look like? What's kind of timeline from initial contact to closing on their first home?
Sure. I had a conversation last night. A lot of these folks live in the coast, maybe like he's in San Bernardino, California, I believe. And so he said, hey, listen, Michael, I'm ready to go. And I said, okay, well, the first thing is if you're going to get financed, is connect with one of my loan officers. He's, oh, well, I've got a buddy. I said, well, your buddy in San Bernardino may not have a license in the state of Indiana. So he said, oh, probably not, right? So connect with my folks and get pre-approved. And then I said, are you doing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? He's like, oh, I'm going to start with 2. I said, well, okay, great. Make sure you know the cash out of pocket and you're comfortable with that. What I do is I narrow them down. I usually have plenty to choose from. And I said, well, these are 2 of my favorite. When someone buys a home, they're already rented and they're rehab. There's not a lot of variables. I take the variables as the operator. I rehab the home and it already has a lease in place, or it'll have a lease before you close. So you won't have a payment until there's that mortgage payment without an ACH from me, a direct deposit. He says, okay, great. We're picking out 2 properties right now. And then we're expecting to go under contract. It's $1,000 of earnest money. That's it. We sign a purchase agreement on property A and property B, and we're going to close in about 4 to 5 weeks. That's it. Literally, he's a busy guy, a mobile notary is going to come out to his house or his office, and here's a stack of paper, sign away. I do the same thing. As a seller, I have a mobile notary, and they come, and then the tenant facing is the same. If the property management company direct deposits the money into my account or your account, the tenant doesn't care. That's not their concern, to be honest, is this investor is looking to replace his income, and he's a younger guy. I think he's 35 or 45, and that he's like, I'm just doing 2 right now, but if I can do 2 a year, I can get to my goal. Keep in mind, some people come to me with lots of money, and I say, well, actually, for the conventional launch, you only can get about 10 mortgages. And then your wife or spouse or partner can only get 10 mortgages. We can still do what's called a debt service coverage ratio loan, which is basically a no-doc loan. We can do those as well. We have those loan folks on staff. We also can do a loan inside of a self-directed IRA. As you all know, a non-recourse loan. But most people are doing pretty straightforward things. So it's really about a 4-week process. I spoke in front of a Chicago kind of a company. They get their bonuses their 3rd quarter. And I remember he would buy a home every year. And then eventually I'm like, does your wife know that you own like 7 houses? And she goes, she does the kids. I just keep buying houses from you. She's got enough favorite tease about it. You know, we love our wives and kids. But all of a sudden, he's got these houses every year. He's got a great portfolio that is growing. So it's exciting to see folks stay the course because they don't really miss the down payments. And these houses are appreciating value. My rents are going up. Every now and again, you need to put some money in, like there's tires on your Camry, but it's going up very, very well. So it's a very short process. It really is.
That's awesome. Yeah. And passive, which is fantastic and probably a great option for some physicians who are listening. I had a question and I'm blanking on it right now. Honestly, it'll come back to me. It's early. My son woke up at 2 a.m. and I had a hard time going back to sleep. But
you said you're on paternity leave.
Yeah,
right?
That's where the beard came from. Yeah. Folks are watching this. A little rusty. We just got back from a 20-day camping trip and it was amazing. Yeah.
Here's one thing to add is that it reminds me of this, is that I do enjoy dining out with my wife. Like I said, we're snowbirds. We spent some time in Miami and I do enjoy my pickleball, of course, but everything is not perfect. I can go out to a really enjoyable steak dinner, let's say, if I want it done this way and it's not done this way. I do appreciate the purveyor or the owner or the concierge or whoever he may be and come around and how's everything going? And I'll say, honestly, this is not going well. This meat or this or that or whatever. My wife's not happy or she doesn't like the seafood or whatever. And he makes it right. He doesn't have any malicious intent. I never thought that. This didn't work out, this one thing. Not often, but every now and again, something happens. And I'm one of those owners that'll come by and say, oh, wow, let me make that right. Because my secret, game plan is to have my investors buy more houses. That helps me out with my game plan. So every now and again, when things don't go right, give me a call or a text and we figure it out. Maybe it's an accounting error on this, whatever it is, it's handled. We're still those old school people from the Midwest that like to answer our phones. And we're dealing with people's money. So it's emotional. So that's okay. We'll fix it.
It's awesome. I'm sure a lot of companies that don't have that same approach, don't answer the phone and don't handle the problems once the home's sold. They just back out. And so that's really awesome to hear and really important. And things are going to happen. We've already hit on that human behavior, like the wheels of the Camry are going to run over a nail. All those sorts of things are going to happen. I remember my question now, Michael, how many homes typically, like if someone's working with you, how many homes do folks typically buy with your company?
You seem to say, I'm going to start with X. I'm going to start with 1 or 2. Okay. Rarely do I get someone, I'll get someone like who's 55 and they'll say, hey, listen, I'm behind. They'll say, hey, listen, I may have screwed up. I may have got divorced. I may have had a bad deal in my life. I need to go hard. Okay. I had to give you this. How can I get this done quickly in 10 years or 9 years or 7 years? Okay. That's rare. If that happens, again, it's a math problem. We can figure it out. But most people will be like, hey, listen, this makes sense. The real estate in my area doesn't make sense. I have no time, but I do have credit. I have some extra cash, and they'll start with 1 or 2. And that's fine. The investor in San Bernardino, he said, I've got $100,000. I'm going to start with 1 now. Great. I have a long-term relationship with these folks. So it's fine.
Yeah.
And it works for me.
And then over time, are they typically buying 1 or 2 a year in your experience?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I want to, same thing, and it's a privilege to do this. I do enjoy it. Most people really don't fly out these days. We have virtual tours and pictures, and you drive around the neighborhoods on Google Maps. It's not that hard. But he's like, hey, makes sense. I was referred to you by one of my friends who's got 4 houses. I said, great. They tried out. And then after 3 or 4 months, they're like, just how you said. I did write a book called Real Estate. Well, my company name is Real Estate Done For You. My book is called Retire on Rent. I sent him the book and it's about a 45-minute read. It's not a Clive Klussler book or anything like that. And he and his wife read it. He's like, makes sense, man. He said, your prices have gone up. I go, well, I need to update the book a little bit. Yeah, but that's a good thing. Actually, prices have gone up since the book was published. So that's it. They start slow and we build a relationship, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, real estate's a relationship game. That's for sure. I'm happy to hear that. And congrats on the book. That's really cool. Writing a book there. Well, that's awesome. I wanted to pivot real quick to something not real estate related, but arguably way more important. 4 kids. You have 4 kids. This is just a self-serving question, but as an entrepreneur myself, how, and no offense to you, but you're a few years further along in your journey.
I am.
What are some
much older and wiser than you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely the wiser. But what tips or tricks do you have for young fathers such as myself or physicians who are really busy building up their businesses and trying to be a present father or trying to spend as much time with their kids as possible?
I was an old 7 Habits guy, like Stephen Covey. I was taught that you have usually 5 roles in life. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a friend, I'm a brother, and I'm a son. One more time. Husband, dad, friend, brother, son. And it's not good for a man's soul, in my opinion, to spend too much time on one thing. I can't just be a husband and forgo my kids. I can't just be a son and love my mom more than I love my wife. That's you got to screw everything out, right? So what I did with my kids is I had specific times for each kid because each kid wanted to be loved differently. It's just their love language were so different. My girls, I would have specific time. They want to do specific things. Boys, in my opinion, are easier because they like to do the same thing I like to do and throw frisbees and ping pong and video games or whatever. But girls, I had a tougher time with girls. And my girl, I would have date nights and specific things. Now, then that said, is I'm also reminded me of this one dad I was talking to. He's like, well, my kids don't want to spend time with me. I said, I don't remember my dad ever really giving me a choice. My dad threw me in the car and said, we're cleaning the car today. We're going to the hardware store today. We're doing this. We're doing this. And I remember I did a new build project where we built $7 million of new homes. I said, we're jumping the truck. We're walking foundations today. And they're like, well, that doesn't sound like fun. I go, well, sorry about your luck. This is what we're doing. And my kids, some of them are interested in real estate. Really, a lot of that, here's what we say, is that quality time is a byproduct of quantity. And I know a lot of these dads don't have that quantity. But I would have to leave the house, do breakfast, do an event, walk in a park, and have that. Like my son and I, we're in a ladder league in pickleball, and we have that Monday night. It's pretty highly protected. Unless I'm flying somewhere or speaking at a conference, that Monday night, my son knows we're good to go. And so specific time. Also, I think a man does need guy time or sibling time where I really pursue my sister. She and I are really good friends. She's a news anchor in Detroit, but we have brother-sister weekends and we fly somewhere in a couple nights and maybe we don't do a whole lot, but we have inside jokes and it's important for our soul. Now both our parents have passed away, but it's still important to have that one-on-one time. And that's what I would encourage, that one-on-one time.
That's great. That was an awesome answer. Happy to hear that. I'd try and do the best I can, of course, and just be present when I'm there. When I get home from seeing patients in clinic, I just put my phone on the kitchen counter. I don't touch it till my kid goes to bed. And I don't want my kids to ever think that something on my phone is more important than them, and I think that's a big thing that folks get kind of tracked by. They don't realize hey, I'm on the phone or I'm on the tablet or whatever that may be. Just trying to be present, trying to show up. I think those are the keys to being a good dad. And of course, learning a lot along the way. It's really cool for me with this podcast, getting to learn from folks like you and ask those questions too, which are not real estate related or entrepreneurship related, but are way more important than real estate.
Well, at the end of your life, you're not going to say, give me all my money so I can lay on my money.
Yeah.
Who cares? You're going to say, give me my family. You know what I mean? I've got an hour to live or a month to live. You don't care about your money, you care about your loved ones. And let me go back to how we started. Rich people have money and wealthy people have time. It's more of a mindset. So I pay off all my cars and I use my extra money. And now I don't have the newest cars though, but then I use all my extra money to buy more real estate. I have more time. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, why are you dropping off your kids? Why are you doing this? Why do you live in this? I'm like, well, I designed it this way. So I don't have to work as much. And it's a design. Same thing with keeping you healthy. I see a lot of your cortisol levels are up because of these long shifts these docs are working. That's not healthy, guys. You all know that, You know that. I don't have to tell these guys that. It sounds goofy. I play a lot of pickleball. I probably play 4 hours a week. I love it. And my watch says I'm burning 1,000 calories every time I play. It's good for me. And socially, it's good.
Yeah.
For me too.
Yeah. Well, there's no better way to wrap things up than pickleball. I love pickleball as well. It is a blast, but that's awesome. Well, Michael, I really appreciate your time today.
Great.
Thank you so much for chatting on the Physicians and Properties podcast. If folks want to reach out to you, they want to know more, they want to invest with you at Real Estate Done For You, what are some ways folks can reach out to you?
Really, the best thing is my website, which is Real Estate Done. So it's Real Estate Done, the number 4 and the letter U. U is in uniform. My book is good, but it's better to have just a conversation with me. That's on Amazon. Retire on Rent. Revised is what it is by Michael Drew. On my website, it's just, I think there's a strategy session you can book right there with me. And that's fine. Send me an email. And that's really great because, again, it's a long-term situation with these guys. So give me a call. Let me know what you're up to. And also let me know what goals you have. Hey, I'm anxious or I'm not, or I don't have a lot of money, or I do, or I got divorced. Life happens to all of us. Let me be on your team and what can we solve? If it's just you're working too much, we can figure that out. Just give me a call and schedule a strategy session with me.
It's all about relationships, and that's a great way to get started. Well, awesome. Well, with that, it's been Michael and Dr. Alex Schloe with another episode of the Physicians and Properties podcast. Michael Drew, thanks so much for coming on. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.